Hello everyone, and welcome to this new Dota Underlords video. So today we've got a freshly released update from the developers. So very cool, very interesting changes here that will no doubt have major impact on the game. So let's dive right into it, see what exactly goes on. So first of all, general changes. These are kind of minor ones, quality of life improvements that don't exactly affect gameplay, or at least shouldn't. There's crash police, memory usage improvements, improved dragging on mobile, dead players will no longer have Underlord talent selected for them. I'm not sure why that was there in the first place, but hey, whatever floats your boat. The bots once again had their shiny metal heads unscrewed. Party UI improvements, yeah, just quality of life stuff that doesn't directly affect gameplay. So gameplay, spiderlings now die as soon as they take any damage whatsoever, because before, like, Enigma's Midnight Pulse would fail to kill them, apparently. Spiderlings no longer have alliance buffs applied to them. A very minor change because there were barely any alliances applied to spiderlings, and the one that really mattered, the troll alliance, still applies. But again, it doesn't buff them too much because their attack damage is so low that it doesn't really end up mattering a whole lot. So fixed an issue where assassins would not jump if they had a castable item equipped. So I saw a lot of people complaining about it. Like if you equipped Shiva's Guard on your Slark, or Dagon on your Templar assassin, perhaps just they wouldn't jump, they would stay there and cast the item first, and maybe not even jump at all. Round damage is back at 1 per every 10 rounds of the game, 1 per round at 10 through 19, 2 at 20 through 28, 29, etc. So this is basically to speed up the game because a lot of people were complaining how the games went on for way too long after the big update. So this aims to tackle this issue. So one thing I'm not too certain about is that I'm not sure how effective it's actually going to be, because if a player is on a win streak or can defend successfully throughout the game, if there are multiple players like that, the game will still drag on for the exact same amount of time. It's just that the players who are doing badly are punished even more now, which I think is unfortunate because I already felt like lose streaking is too much risk and you already take too much damage if you lose streak past round 10, and now it's even more dangerous. So not sure about that change, but I guess you just should try to aim to end your lose streak as soon as possible and actually defend yourself from dying horribly. Jail. So pretty interesting changes to the jail here. So while the jail concept succeeded at keeping the game fresher day after day, our initial implementation made it so certain alliances were overly punished, such as scrappies and inventors, while some other assassins were virtually unaffected most of the time. In order to address some of these problems, we are changing the jail algorithm a little bit. Every day, 8 to 12 heroes are jailed. Up to 3 heroes from a single alliance can be banned. This means that some days, certain alliances won't be fully completable. This is very interesting. So it's basically the opposite of the initial philosophy, like how the jail was implemented, because before, it could ban, basically it will ban 1 hero from every alliance tops, which would result in every alliance still being completable. Now, they made it so some alliances may not be completable on certain days, which is huge because this will effectively knock this particular alliance out of the game. Basically, people will stop trying to build it. Unless, well, they might try to build it at a lower rank. For example, you can build 6 warriors, but 3 warriors might still provide a decent frontline, so you build 3 warriors. But yeah, a very interesting change. And also, there's a second part to it all. So, right here, 1 ace will be jailed every day. Heroes from tiers 1 through 4 can no longer have more than 1 unit banned over other tiers. For example, if there's 10 jailed heroes, the jail might look like this. Tier 1, 2 bans, Tier 2, 3 bans, Tier 3, 2 bans, Tier 4, 2 bans, Tier 5, 1 ban, as always. So, basically what this means is, before, when the update was, the jail thing was implemented, what could happen was that on the same day you could see 3 different heroes, or even 4 from the same tier being banned. Like, for example, like I talked about in my recent video where I played Assassins, I was able to easily assemble a 3-star anti-mage, Nyx Assassin, and Bounty Hunter after leveling up to 9 because there were 3 different tier 1 heroes banned, and considering there was a total of 8 heroes, that was a very large percentage of the total amount of bans. So now it should be more balanced, and basically the amount of heroes banned from every tier will be almost even, with the exception of tier 5, of course. Additionally, some other units have changed alliances, which will make the impact more even across different alliances. Yeah, because, like they said right here, hunters and assassins were barely affected, but now they will be more affected not only because of this change, but because of the alliance changes of some particular heroes, which we'll talk about in a moment. But first of all, Underlord changes. This is pretty huge. They decided to revamp Underlords pretty significantly here. So let us read. Rank is no longer tied to player level. All Underlords in the game grow steadily in power throughout the game on the same schedule. At their maximum power, they are equivalent to the old version's rank 8. Okay, so they will basically, this means they will have health, damage output, ability numbers like damage cooldown, whatever, that they used to have at level 8. That's the maximum for them now. And this means that basically before, leveling up was pretty much the best strategy, and like aggressive reroll strategies didn't work because leveling up just made your Underlord so much stronger that the opponents rerolling and having 3 stars didn't really matter a whole lot. So now this should cause a lot more players to at least try to make it work, like stay at lower levels like 7, 8, or even 6, and reroll more in order to find those 3 stars while it's still possible. And players who level up to 9 or 10 won't be as powerful because their Underlord won't be upgraded together with the level. Underlords no longer require hype to cast abilities. Abilities start on cooldown and will be cast every time their cooldowns are ready. Another pretty huge change because, there are so many ways to drain hype from Underlords. Like mana burn, like being stunned or silenced. It happens all the time, and it feels really bad when your Underlord just gets crowd controlled into oblivion and never actually gets to cast anything. So now this problem is fixed because you don't need hype anymore. You just need to wait a few seconds before it actually happens. So what hype does instead now, because it's still in the game, interestingly enough, is it increases your Underlord's damage up to plus 50% maximum total damage at full hype. So I'm guessing this means attack damage, but maybe it could mean all types of damage. Like, for example, Anessix has her companion, and Hobgen has his regular attack. Maybe this plus 50% only buffs that, but it also might be that it buffs their abilities, like Hobgen's Esplosivo or Anessix's Pure Pain. This remains to be seen. Oh, and also hype increases how fast their cooldowns tick, up to 40% faster at full hype. So basically, an effect similar to Octarine Essence, where, the cooldown just goes by faster. We thought it was time to try a different approach to the Underlords. One thing we agreed strongly on was that they were overshadowing our hero units with the Underlord's actions or lack thereof, changing the direction of combat too wildly. Yeah, like I said, so now they will always get to cast their abilities unless they just die instantly, which also happens, but a lot more rarely than just being drained of hype. We also didn't like how hard it skewed leveling versus rolling. Spending gold on XP was the clear choice. Yeah, like I said just now, was the clear choice most of the time. With better units in the shop, space for an extra units on the board, and greater Underlord power, team rolling never had a chance. And now they should have a chance. In addition to that, the abilities themselves were also slightly changed, slightly tweaked. Anessix gains hype, she gains hype slower by default, but hype per demon has been changed, so if you have more demons, you can get hype even faster now. which already was pretty fast, but since hype now has less impact, at least I assume so, and that demons are, kind of awkward to fit together because of their new, while their new alliance bonus is better than the old one for the purpose of getting them together, it's still very often kind of awkward. Like, for example, you have a Shadow Fiend. If you have any other demon together with a Shadow Fiend, your Shadow Fiend basically will never get to cast his spell. It really sucks oftentimes. Okay, so Martyr's Boon. Cooldown changed from 15 to 12.5, but you'll have to wait 12 seconds at the start of the fight to cast it first, so pay attention to that. Heal per level changed from 10 to 11, and no longer targets spiderlings. Okay, so yeah, basically Martyr's Boon being buffed, since Hobgen was clearly stronger than Anessix in most aspects. Here are quite a few, I should say, Anessix buffs and Hobgen nerfs. So Pure Pain damage per level changed from 10 to 15, now targets the highest health enemy. Alright, yeah, so Pure Pain used to target the lowest health enemies, which would waste most of its damage considering it's applied over like 7 or 9 seconds or something like that. And now not only does it do more damage, but it also has a much higher chance of doing its full damage because it will target the enemy who can actually take all of it. Enthralled. Cooldown changed from 20 to 22. Okay. Summon Demonic Golem. Cooldown changed from 15 to 22. Yeah, this is basically so that they don't cast their ultimates too fast, since hype is no longer required for that. It could often be very awkward that, they cast it super quickly. There's just will be way too much going on the battlefield. That's where I assume they're coming from with this change. So, Chaotic Hunter, extra shots changed from 1 to 2. So, slightly toning down the nerf that was previously there. Because after that nerf, Chaotic Hunter became a lot less viable. And most people, I think, just started picking Brill Bruiser, if even they picked Anessix at all, because Hobgen was clearly better, like I said. Phantom Pain armor per level changed from 2 to 1. The Phantom Pain was clearly the superior in that tier, talent tier, after the nerf to break, because 2 of the effects were Instant Regret, which caused enemies to be broken when they kill allies affected by Martyr's Boon, and Exploit Weakness, which caused your companion's attacks to break enemies. Now, when Break was nerfed, these talents became a lot less viable, so basically Phantom Pain was the only viable choice. But now, since it gets nerfed so hard, you will actually have to think and see what you want to choose instead. So Anessix's Golem, attack damage minimum changed from increased, basically. Attack damage maximum also increased. Maximum health also increased. Movement speed decreased slightly, but I don't think it's going to matter too much. Basically just all-around buffs to all of Anessix's abilities. Slightly nerfed this talent here in order to make other choices viable. Overall, pretty cool stuff. And yeah, the reason there are 2 numbers in every column, because the other number corresponds to the absolute unit ability. Okay, so Hobgen. Passive ability, passive hype generation decreased, and hype per unit on fire also decreased. Well, fair enough, because Hobgen was getting hype a lot really fast, way too fast in my opinion. But again, since hype is less important now, we'll see how much impact it actually has, because everything might change just based on that hype alteration. Explosivo, base damage per level changed from 125 to 150. Cooldown changed from 15 to 12. Okay, so yeah, it basically charges up faster at the start of the fight. Damage increase, that's actually very interesting. It seems more like a buff. I guess they wanted it to have more impact since I'm guessing he won't get to cast it as fast at the start of the fight. So perhaps they just wanted it to have more impact when it's first cast, because it will have less impact just from the hype change, because he won't be able to cast it as quickly. Supercharged. Attack speed per level changed from 15 to 13. Okay, so nerf that. And cooldown changed from 5 to 8. Yeah, of course you need to change the cooldown, because otherwise he will just keep casting it constantly, and that won't be too good with the hype change again. Cooldown changed from 60 to 22. Let's go crazy. Yeah. Okay, so this is basically just so you can actually use this ability. Because if the cooldown was 60, you'll still use it like pretty much when the fight is over, and it's completely irrelevant. And this change ensures that he actually uses it when it still does something. Friendly fire. Cooldown changed from 15 to 22. Round will not end while bombs are exploding. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, again, the same thing with the cooldown, so he casts it a bit. Doesn't cast it too quickly in this case, because the cooldown was only 15 seconds, almost the same as Explosivo. And now you'll have to wait a little bit longer. In the same way as the round will not end while Gyrocopter's cooldown airstrike is in progress. Yeah, that's fair. Basically, you gotta wait for the bombs to land. Perhaps they might kill something else on the opponent's board, and then the outcome of the round might be different. Like, it could be a draw instead of a loss, let's say. Afterburn now burns the cells adjacent to the target cell. Yeah. So buffs to Afterburn, pretty significant. Even though the duration has been reduced, the damage has been per second has been increased. And considering it has higher radius, it will have a higher overall damage output. And yeah, fixed an issue where the effect would end when Hobgen died. Well, obviously these bugs shouldn't be there, so great job on fixing that. Yeah, so basically trying to make Afterburn more viable. Perhaps it will you will more often find yourself picking that over whatever the other choices are on that talent tier. Drain Bomb no longer drains hype. Drain amount changed from 50 to 100. So yeah, it drains basically all of the mana, all the enemies who get hit by it. But as a trade-off, it no longer drains hype from the Underlord. But again, since hype is less viable now, that might be just fine. I think Drain Bomb is still like not as good, because the amount of damage you get from Explosivo is very significant, and Drain Bomb removes it completely. So that's still a pretty big downside to this ability, and still, I don't think this change will necessarily bring Drain Bomb into play. I think one cool change they could do with that would be to do something like make Drain Bomb drain mana from the enemies over time, like over 5 seconds, let's say. So they just can't build that mana right back up and use the ability while, use the ability anyway, even though their mana was just drained, just because it was on cooldown, so it didn't matter. I think, yeah, if they made it drain the mana over like 5 seconds or 6 seconds or whatever, it could be slightly more useful that way. Molten Armor only ignites adjacent attackers. Okay, so yeah, changes to the most powerful talents in the game, Molten Armor and Keep It Secret, because everyone and their mother was complaining about them. Obviously, because, it was really disheartening when Hobgen, basically reach round 30, Hobgen gets the Keep It Secret talent, and now he silences the entire opposing team just by placing him the right way. That was really disheartening, really terrible for the game. So everyone complained, and now it's been changed. So Molten Armor only ignites adjacent attackers, doesn't work against Magic Immune or invulnerable enemies. Okay, so Magic Immune change is pretty fair. It should have been there in the first place, in my opinion. And ignites adjacent attackers. It means basically that if you're attacking Hobgen from across the map with your ranged enemies, they won't get lit on fire, which is fair, It's more logical this way. Let's just say that. The armor is still there. The armor remains unchanged, so it's still a really good talent. Gives you a lot of survivability, and I think it's still going to be fine, but a lot less powerful, but that change is definitely deserved. Keep It Secret now reads, whenever an enemy is set on fire, they are silenced for 1.5 seconds. This effect can happen again every time the fire expires. No longer silences magic immune units. So, yeah, to coincide with the Molten Armor change, this has also been reduced, because Keep It Secret was the more problematic of the two, obviously. So, instead of being constantly silenced, the enemies will now be silenced for 1.5 seconds, and then, if the fire doesn't go out, if they keep burning, they will no longer be silenced. So this is a lot fairer. This is a huge improvement. It might be slightly too weak for what the talent does, but it's kind of hard to say right now. Maybe it's just fine. So we'll have to play some games in order to actually find out. So, and here we go. Hero changes. Very interesting, peculiar changes here. So mana break hype burn changed from 246 to 4612, so making the hype burn more significant, even though anti-mage already was a huge annoyance for your Underlord as long as he can reach them. Now it's going to be a lot less of an annoyance because you don't need hype to actually cast the abilities, but on the upside, or downside for your enemies, I guess you could say, the hype burn will be a lot stronger, which means basically this will create a pretty big, substantial hype difference between the owner of the anti-mage and the opponent, which will then result in the owner of the anti-mage, doing more damage with the Underlord and the cooldown sticking faster, a lot faster. So hopefully, it still should be fairly impactful. Faceless, because anti-mage doesn't do that much damage, so anti-mage can't actually kill the Underlord, but constantly burning hype like that, while no longer as annoying, should still have a pretty good impact. Faceless Void. Chrono Cube effect duration changed from 546 to 234, so pretty much nerfed into oblivion in that respect, but to compensate for it, slightly, they changed the attack speed from 50 to 75. So I guess that's something, but from 4 seconds to 2 seconds, that's like, wow. Basically, you won't use, this was made so that you won't use Faceless Void in just about every comp you could think of, because, that's what people would do. Now you actually need to make use of his synergies if you actually want him to be any use at all. Like 6 Primordials or 6 Assassins or whatever, then he will be good. But if you don't have those, perhaps you might not want to pick it, because this new Chrono Cube is not as strong, let's just say that. IO, relocate. Units keep their existing cooldowns when brought back. So this means this is a pretty big change for IO, because you could often position yourself in a way like, for example, you could attach your IO to, or not even attach your IO, but actually just have a Tidehunter with a refresher or a Lone Druid with a refresher who would die fairly quickly after using their ability twice, because they could always use their ability twice considering how much health everything has in this game. Unless they were, of course, silenced by Keep It Secret, but that's a whole different story. So yeah, your unit would die super fast, but still get a lot of value. But then Aya would relocate and bring that unit back, and they would come back with a refresher orb and use the ability twice again and have insane value. So now, basically, the value still won't be just as insane, but the impact is still there, because it's still, you're bringing back a unit. Depending on what unit is brought back, it could still turn the fight around. But perhaps now, instead of trying to bring back someone with a short cooldown, with a long cooldown, you want to bring back someone with a short cooldown so they can use it a couple more times. Or perhaps you could even put your refresher on the IO, so it actually brings back 2 allies, so it could have more impact this way, instead of putting your refresher on a Lone Druid or a Tidehunter. Well, that's might be a bit of a stretch. Of course, we will only find out if it's viable once we actually play the game. For now, it's really hard to say. Keeper of the Light. So Illuminate. Channel time changed from 3 to 4. Damage per second channeling changed from decreased. And therefore, total damage, of course, also decreased. So this was kind of necessary after the buff to Keeper of the Light, where his mana was brought back from 150 to 100. It made him really strong. And after the Hobgen buffs, which created this or brought this 6 mage Hobgen build into prominence, Keeper of the Light basically just was doing way too much damage. Yeah, so the damage will you will have to channel longer in order to release it. But interestingly enough, here we can see that at 2 and 3 stars, the damage at 2, 3 stars the damage is equal to what it was before, and at 3 stars it's greater. So basically, they're trying to make it so that a low star cuddle has less impact, because at 2 stars you still have to channel it for 4 seconds instead of 3 in order to get this damage. So yeah, basically changing it where it actually counts at 1 and 2 stars, and making it so it's not as obscenely powerful and slightly more delayed. Okay, so Morphling changed from Assassin to Mage. So there are the alliance changes that they talked about above. Here they are. Changed from alliance to from Assassin to Mage. Maximum mana changed from 75 to 100, and tier changed from 2 to 3. So yeah, Morphling will be, not only will it be a lot harder to complete 2 and 3 stars because it's now tier 3, but also you can no longer pretty much put it in Assassins. You don't really need to. Which is, fair. Morphling wasn't particularly common in 6 Assassin builds. It was mostly used to complete the 6 Assassin synergy itself, but the magical damage from Waveform didn't bring all that much to the table when you don't have a mage bonus online. Now that Morphling itself is a mage, you can pair it up with a Razor and another mage, and have a really strong lineup like that, and which will then become even stronger if you can assemble primordials. Like, primordial mages are even stronger now because you can basically fit 6 mages and 6 primordials into just 10 units. You have your let's say Tiny, Arc Warden, Enigma, Faceless Void on the primordial side, and let's just say something like Keeper of the Light, Lich, Lena, and like Ogre Magi on the mage side. And then you have Morphling and Razor, who are both mages and primordials. And there you go. That's 10 units, 6 mages, 6 primordials. So that's going to be super strong if you actually manage to level up and survive. Because you remember, Underlords have been nerfed in terms of scaling with levels. So leveling up to 10 no longer means that your Underlord is going to be an awesome powerhouse. Gotta have to watch out for that really carefully, especially going for these high-level builds, because you might just, spend too much gold into levels and be left without gold completely. So then your opponents will just have better economy, and you won't kill them fast enough from just leveling up, and the economy will actually matter in the end. So yeah, gotta watch out for that. Weaver changed from Hunter to Elusive. So Elusives, when it came to the big update, Elusives kind of got the short end of the stick, because basically they lost Treant Protector and Nature's Prophet, who were the most important units because of how much value they brought to the table by upgrading each other, and by Treant being stupidly tanky. And then, even though the Elusives got 3 assassins, it still wasn't nearly as impactful because everything else was kind of all over the place. There's Puck, who's a mage, there's Windranger and Mirana, who are hunters, and I don't even remember if there is anything else left. But now we have a Weaver. I don't know, I think it might have been a good idea to leave him a hunter still, just for the purpose of elusives, so that you have 3 elusive hunters and 3 elusive assassins, and have something to choose from. But it's still a very interesting change because, being an elusive insect means that you will have a lot of survivability, while at the same time, when having survivability is very important when playing insects, because, insects do damage constantly. No matter how many times they're killed, they always come back. As long as you're a main army, something survives. So yeah, elusive makes Weaver even more survivable when coupled with Shikuchi. So my favorite thing in this game, which is Radiance, 3-star Radiance Weaver, might be even more viable now. Even scarier, I should say. Attack damage minimum increased, attack damage maximum also increased, so all welcome changes that aim to compensate for losing, the Hunter bonus. Weaver will not Shikuchi while evading unless about to receive magic damage. So this just means that when the elusive bonus actually activates, Weaver will stand there and attack instead of going into Shikuchi and, moving around, because that will waste precious time of having the elusive bonus that you need to spend attacking. So, very interesting change. It's hard to really say how much impact it will really have and whether or not it can bring the elusives back. But maybe it might. We're going to have to wait and see. Item changes. So, Helm of the Undying. Fixed an issue where break would lead to an Undying unit doing end of round damage. So basically, when your unit has Helm of the Undying equipped, it doesn't actually do end of round damage to the opposing player if it survives. So I guess break, which completely disabled Helm of the Undying, would cause damage to still be dealt. Which, while I guess it seems kind of logical from the mechanics point of view, I think this is actually a good change because break shouldn't really help your opponents. It's already fairly weak considering it no longer disables the alliances, and in this case, if it helps your opponents, it's even worse. So if a unit with the helm survives the fight, it won't be killed at the end of the round. Okay, so since as I understand this change, if I understand this correctly, this still means that Helm of the Undying doesn't do the unit with the Helm of the Undying still doesn't do end of round damage. This shouldn't have any impact. It's just like, hey, if your unit with the Helm of the Undying is the last one standing, perhaps instead of a draw, this could result in a win. So I guess that's why. Smuggler removed from the game. Of course, this change is huge. Smuggler has been the best item in the game for a while, especially after the change where you could get your tier 5 items starting with around 35 or 30 if you had Smuggler. It made tier 5 items a lot more common. The downside was that if you didn't have Smuggler, you kind of got the short end of the stick and were all but guaranteed to get the bottom 5. I don't want to say bottom 4. Might not be entirely true, but bottom 5 definitely, like 4th place tops. And now, this is no longer the case because Smuggler has been straight up removed from the game. So, sadly, this means that tier 5 items are going to become a lot less common because it was really fun to actually get to play with them. But hey, since it's still available, since they still could be available at round 25, perhaps we could still see enough of them. So yeah, these are basically all the changes. This is it for the update. So now, I guess we should try to get some gameplays in and see whether or not these changes had the impact they were intended to have. So I'll try to get a gameplay out as soon as possible. But for now, this is going to be it for this video. And I have some other interesting stuff to record, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. It helps me out a lot. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next one. So goodbye, and take care, everybody.